Good evening and welcome to Transistance. This is your weekly news and commentary show dealing with issues around the world that have to intersect with the transgender and transgender adjacent community. I'm one of your hosts, Genevieve Bergman.
And I'm your co-host, Emily Kleckner. I hope everybody's having a great night out there. We've got some interesting news to get into today. This is going to be an intense show. So, Jeannie, you ready to hop into it?
Yes, I am.
Let's dive right in. Okay. First off, the new Texas GOP platform. They released their platform notes. They're basically, this is their platform going forward, declaring homosexuality an abnormal lifestyle choice, and so many other just insane things. What
Absolutely.
did you want to focus on here in this article, Jeannie?
There is no focus. The the substance of the GOP platform that was released. Now, the Republican Party of Texas had their convention over the weekend, wherein they voted on those, items that the Republican Party are going to, stand for and push for through the next election cycle. This is the official platform of the Texas GOP. This is what they are giving to any of their elected officials to be campaigning on. It is what they are going to be pushed as an initiative for whatever they do if they're elected. So keep this in mind. This is not, these are not laws. These are not legislation issues that are being, pushed. These are only platform agenda items that the Republican Party are going to be pushing for through the next set of elections. And the reality is that they cover a wide-ranging spread of issues. So, for example, the Texas GOP is demanding state legislature to pass a law that prohibits the teaching of sex education, sex health, sexual choice, or identity in public schools in any grade whatsoever.
Oh, oh my God. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
They are requesting the Texas legislature to pass legislation that requires Texas schools, any Luna, they're requesting the Texas legislature to pass legislation that requires Texas schools and libraries to filter inappropriate or harmful content such as pornography for minors. This is the part we need to really pay attention to. Operators of adult sex entertainment businesses and venues, adult entertainment of any kind, including drag queen story hour, shall not be a part of educational programming in public schools, libraries, or any other taxpayer funded program for children. Don't overlook that statement. They just equated drag queen story hour with adult sex entertainment, businesses and venues, and adult entertainment of any kind. When it comes to gender identity,
Here we go, y'all. Strap in on this one.
This is in connection to the Texas schools. This is an education point. We oppose transgender normalizing curriculum and pronoun use. The medical students' religious liberty point that they made is that we require basically anyone who has any conscious objection to any kind of particular medical procedures. This is the list that they include: prescription for and dispensing of drugs with abortifacient potential, human cloning, embryonic stem cell research, eugenic screenings, genetic engineering, euthanasia, assisted suicide, harmful futile procedures, vaccines, and the withdrawal of nutrition and hydration. Now, I bring this list up to make note of harmful futile procedures. Gender affirming care would be listed quite possibly as a harmful, futile procedure because they do not believe that gender can be affirmed through medication. So that's why I put that one in there. Now, going on to homosexuality. This is the big one that has been dropped into the news, but it says, as a point of fact, homosexuality is an abnormal lifestyle choice. But this is where it expands on that. There should be no granting of special legal entitlements or creation of special status for homosexual behavior. No one should be granted special legal status based on their LGBTQ plus identification. Moving down into gender identity as a whole, we oppose all efforts to validate transgender identity and for the purposes of attempting to affirm a person 21 or under if their perception is inconsistent with their biological sex. No medical practitioner or provider may engage in any of the following practices: puberty blockers, sex hormones, surgery on healthy body parts of the underage person. Notice, underage is now defined in this push as 21 years old. No taxpayer funding for sex change, basically any type of medical gender dysphoria treatments or sex change operations and or treatments. That is the Medicare, Medicaid. But listen to this. This is where things get really, 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 really bad. This includes, but is not limited to, military personnel as well as inmates in federal, state, or local prisons or jails. Inmates must be housed according to their biological sex. Therapists, this is on counseling methods. Therapists, psychologists, and counselors licensed within the state of Texas shall not be forbidden or penalized by any licensing board for practicing reintegrative therapy or other counseling methods when counseling clients of any age with gender dysphoria or unwanted same-sex attraction. For us, we call this conversion therapy. Mm-hmm. They are basically saying no one can be penalized, nor shall they be subject to any type of discipline for conversion therapy. Pornography crisis.
This is the one I love, the pornography crisis.
The state of Texas shall recognize that pornography is a public health hazard. We call upon our elected leaders to compel any websites displaying pornographic content in Texas to implement age verification for preventing minors from accessing the content. The state of Texas shall recognize that pornography and pedophilia are public health hazards. Please put
again, equating two very, very different things.
But also, please put into connection what they have been calling pedophiles. Mm-hmm. Medical freedom. We call for an addition to the Texas Bill of Rights that explicitly states that Texans have the natural, inalienable right to refuse vaccination or other medical treatment. Therefore, the following are expressly forbidden, even in an emergency or in a pandemic. Since informed consent is a basic human right, any attempt to mandate, force, or coerce any medical test, procedure, or product, including vaccines or masks.
Wow, you can't force a person to get tested.
No.
To gain entry to something. Wow.
No, not even for an emergency or a pandemic situation. Any school, public or private, or any healthcare provider withholding from a parent or legal guardian information that is relevant to the physical or mental health of the minor, to include information related to a minor's perception that his or her gender or sex is inconsistent with his or her biological sex. Any Nuremberg Code violations, including but not limited to the requirement that use of experimental use medications must provide full knowledgeable consent and be free from any form of coercion or inducement. If you have not been paying attention, the entire argument about any gender affirming hormone blocking treatments that youth receive, they have been called experimental. They have been called test subjects. They have been called that, or they've been described as having been coerced into these things by transgender agenda individuals pushing their ideology. So, this is one of my favorites because it shows the hypocrisy. Parental rights and responsibilities. We support the fundamental constitutional rights of parents to raise and educate their children, including their rights to direct the care, custody control, upbringing, moral and religious training, and medical care of their children. Local, state, or federal laws, regulations, or policies that limit parental rights in the rearing of both biological and adopted children shall not be enacted. Parents have the God-given right and responsibility to direct and guide their children's care and moral upbringing. Parental rights of dependent adult children. As long as parents are responsible for an adult child through college or the age of 26, when children are on the parent's insurance, the parents must have access to medical information, grades, and other information normally afforded to the parents of minor children. Notice what this says here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, adults don't even have rights anymore. If they're on their parents' insurance, the parents still have the right to make every decision of them. Wow.
Exactly. If a person is up to 26-year-old, or they are in college and they are covered by their parents' insurance, and their parents refuse them access to gender affirming care, that would be completely legal under this platform. Parental consent. We insist on informed parental consent for all medical care, counseling, etc. of all minors. I'm going to skip the next couple of things because they're not, it's about the conscience clause. And if somebody is, if they have a conflict of conscience, they can basically reject any of those things that I listed earlier. But these two I do want to hit on. We urge the repeal of the Texas Penal Code obscenity exemption, which allows children access to harmful, explicit, or pornographic materials under the guise of education materials. The state of Texas should repeal all Texas laws based on the fraudulent research of Dr. Alfred Kinsey.
Fraudulent how? What was the precedent for that definition of that being fraudulent? What's the precedent there?
Dr. Kinsey said, being gay is normal.
Yeah, but they say it's fraudulent. You have to have proof that something's a fraud, right?
Oh,
the fraud allegation is serious.
The Bible proves it's wrong.
Well, the Bible that I suspect they're using has been proven fraudulent.
No, this is the thing. They are basically arguing that the Kinsey research that has been done over the last 70 years has all been based upon fraudulent foundations. This one, listen to this one. Please listen to this one. We urge the complete repeal of the hate crime laws, since ample laws are currently in effect to punish criminal behavior towards other persons.
Isn't that why hate crime legislation exists? Is because it's not ample?
Well,
people aren't receiving sentences enough to.
It's motivation. Hate crime is built upon motivation, and if somebody is motivated by an attitude of rejection of a person's sex, gender, race, creed, color, religion, land of origin, that is the point there. By removing that, they basically said then everybody is equal and nobody is going to be recognized as a special classification of people. So basically, if you're a white supremacist, you can whack on anybody you want to and not have to face a hate crime. Continuing on, and yeah, there's
But wait, there's more.
yeah,
There's so much more.
we support enacting legislation in the state of Texas ensuring that no government entity in the state shall be allowed to take it upon itself to define for any private business or private entity how it must segregate its restrooms, changing facilities, or showers. Nor may any government agency be allowed to require businesses to profess, espouse, or adopt specific views on sex, sexuality, gender, or gender identity. We oppose any attempt to criminalize and or penalize anyone for the wrong use of pronouns. Government agencies must guarantee that views and positions on these matters are not used as a basis to deny access to public accommodations, as defined by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, nor to deny employment or discriminate in employment decisions solely on the basis of a person's views on these matters, which basically means if we don't get special protection for our bigotry, nobody gets special protection. We recognize, okay, here we go, folks. Now, this is another, pay attention. We recognize that gender identity disorder is a genuine and extremely rare mental health condition, and that denial of an immutable gender binary not only denies those with the condition proper medical health care, but also leads to physically and psychologically abusive social transitioning, as well as irreversible physical mutilation. We urge the state legislature to pass legislation that requires adherence to sex identifications on all official documents that will be based upon biological gender, as well as legislation enacting civil penalties and fiscal compensation awarded to detransitioners who have received gender affirming surgery as compensation for malpractice.
So they start saying that gender dysphoria is a real thing, and it's basically it's a real thing, and then somehow they flip in the mid, going against reality and saying that the physical and psychological or physical and social transition are abusive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you believe the first half, you have to believe the second half, that the solution to gender identity disorder is the social and medical transition that helps fix that disorder,
No,
solve that problem.
No, what they are pushing here is that gender identity disorder is a mental health condition that is extremely rare, and that denial of immutable gender binary, male and female, not only denies those individuals proper mental health care, but also leads to physically and psychologically abusive social transitioning. What it's saying is that transgender individuals, anybody who suffers from gender identity disorder, is mentally ill. They are not receiving the proper mental health care that they need right now. They are being convinced and lied to about the idea that they need to socially transition in order to become an individual who is healthy. So it is saying that by limiting all ability to change official documentation, anyone who attempts to do that will be considered a mentally ill person. But if somebody detransitions, if someone feels like that they really are not a transgender individual, the state will allow for the lawsuits of detransitioners to sue doctors based on informed consent, and they change their mind.
Yeah, they made their own choice, and thus it's the doctor's responsibility. It's so ridiculously backwards, and it's funny because like you start reading that, and it sounds like, well, yes, this is true, except for the extremely rare part. Like, you could consider it rare, I guess. One, what is it? What are we at? Like about 1 in 100, maybe a little bit more than that. Like, I guess that's not super common, but with what do we have? 250 million people. It seems like kind of a lot of people.
Yeah. Human sexuality, they go back to God's biblical design for marriage and sexual behavior, which is quite frankly exactly opposed to the separation of church and state. But we won't get into that argument.
And
But
I'm just curious, which God is that?
oh no, it's the Bible. It's the Bible God. It's not any other books. Yes, trans mom hugs. Basically, they will make it so medical professionals will not want to risk malpractice lawsuits. To find a gender affirming physician, you will have to leave any state that would have these kind of platforms in the Republican Party.
And rest assured that this is just the first state. This is not like Texas being weird and going out there. This is the first state of many, as we've seen. Idaho, Florida, many other states will follow with not only these declarations, but probably more extreme ones.
Maine actually had released their GOP platform, and it had already contained some of these items. Texas took this one, and they also took Florida, and they merged them together, along with other concepts and ideas that have been floating around there. Texas is just an expansion on the entirety of the conservative attack on transgender and the wider LGBTQIA+ community. But I wanted to touch on this. We affirm God's biblical design for marriage and sexual behavior between one biological man, one biological woman, which has proven to be the foundation for all great nations in Western civilization. They are essentially saying that only in the West have people been civilized enough to practice any kind of healthy relationships.
How has it been proven? What's proven what? Proven to be what? What?
I know. We urge the Texas legislature to pass religious liberty protections for individuals, businesses, and government officials who believe marriage is between one man and one woman. We oppose the granting of special legal entitlements or the creation of special status for sexual behavior or identity, regardless of state of origin. We oppose any criminal or civil penalties against those who oppose non-traditional sexual behavior out of faith conviction or belief in traditional values. Protecting minors until age of consent. A law should be enacted to protect the rights of the individual until the age of consent is reached. Prohibits sexual transition, surgeries, hormone blockers, social transitioning, or treatments. Protect against predatory sexual behaviors, including but not limited to drag queen story hour. So they went beyond saying that it is adult entertainment, comparing it to adult sex practices, but now it is a predatory sexual behavior. And this one at the very end. We believe that Obergefell and versus Hodges' decision overturning the Texas law prohibiting same-sex marriage in Texas has no basis in the Constitution and should be nullified.
Yeah, they believe that, but
all right. Now, I said I wanted 30 minutes. Emily, I request 45. I describe this in a number of places as an outright declaration of war against the LGBTQIA+ community. This is a direct attack. The Texas Republican platform, unless Texas swings back to Democratic control, we know that this will be the marching orders of Texas for the next election cycle. This is not rhetoric. This is what the Texas GOP published on its website as their permanent platform. This is what their marching orders are. This is what they intend to do with the coming 2 to 4 years.
That's very short term of you, Jeannie.
Right, I know it is. But the damage that this can cause in 2 to 4 years, we are talking about the death and or the institutionalization of a healthy percentage of the LGBTQIAP plus community in the state of Texas.
Mhm.
Because if their issue is that gender dysphoria is a mental health condition, and it is such a relatively small and rare number of people, if they cannot get in a position where conversion therapy works, we're going back to the treatment days of electric shock therapy and lobotomies. This is the direction they are going. Now,
scary.
It is.
Very frightening.
There's something that I wanted to bring up. Because this was mentioned in these. Sorry, y'all. I am...
We've gone from being surprised at the things that they accidentally would say out loud in certain, conventions and things like that that were being recorded, to this is their out and out policy, just straight right out, coming right out with it. And it's just completely unabashed anti-LGBT policies.
Right. The Nuremberg Code was formulated after World War II, when it was discovered about the experimentation that the National Socialist Party performed on members of the Jewish people, the Romani, gays, those with disabilities, blacks, and other racial groups. The Nuremberg Code is supposed to set it is supposed to create a set of ethical standards for research. One of the things that was stated in there was that there would be no allowance for any Nuremberg Code violations, including but not limited to the requirement that use of experimental use medications must provide full knowledgeable consent and be free from any form of coercion or inducement.
Which, of course, is going to be practically impossible to prove, considering that they fully believe that any child who identifies as trans has been coerced.
Right. But also, let's take this one step further, because trans medicalists and true scum people also make the declaration that any and all cross-gender hormone therapies are experimental. The trans medicalist and the true scum community believes that any and all gender-based hormone replacement therapy, wherein people like you and I, Emily, we cross and we seek the hormones that are opposite of what we were using before. And those are called experimental in those communities.
Yeah.
And that means that they would outlaw gender affirming HRT for adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is exactly what you said would happen. This is exactly what you said that they were coming for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gender affirming care of any kind for anyone who's trans.
Yes.
They believe that if we just pray hard enough, that all of our issues will be solved.
Yes.
All the issues of the world will be solved.
Yep.
And it's funny, there's nothing in there about marriage and abolishing all divorce. You know, um, you know, death penalty for infidelity. Um, you know, any of that type of stuff that would be more in line with things the Bible actually does say,
Mm-hmm.
as
You're
far
right.
as and the like.
So I'm gonna touch on this because it has become a very large rallying cry for those of us who are on TikTok. If you are a transgender creator, or if you are the allies of transgender people, and you may be in some way a content creator, we are requesting humbly and out of fear for our lives to switch from protect trans kids or trans men are men and trans women are women to the language stop trans genocide. This is genocidal in what they are talking about here. This is an effort to eradicate transgender people. This is an effort to remove their identity from the face of the earth. Not just Texas, y'all. This is for the entire, I mean, this is just the beginning. As Emily said, this is not the last platform we're going to see. Okay. Now I'm done.
Tyler made a very astute comment in the Twitch chat after what I had said about you know, what about death penalty for infidelity. Uh, she said death penalty for infidelity on the side for female infidelity if the women are it. You know,
Yep. Um,
I'm all discombobulated and I've lost all language. So I had a thought process there. I had a track and it fell apart on me. I hope you understand what I mean. But
I do.
they'll
Now,
they'll prosecute women
right.
who would cheat on their husbands, but not the other way around.
Yep.
Because
Well, when many of them are politicians and police and, you know, people of power, it's really hard to, you know, eliminate those people from the face of the earth. It's just simple women. Come on now.
yeah,
Go ahead.
remember when Georgia? I don't even remember now. There's been so much news. But when Georgia instituted that a policy, what was it? It was the bathroom ban.
Mm-hmm.
They went to institute a bathroom ban, and the NBA pulled the finals out of Georgia. Wasn't that it?
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple
Something
other
like
major organizations that pulled out of that state, and it canceled that. They stopped it. I If we have any allies in the United States, I would love to see all of them pull out of Texas and like actually make a stand here, make a statement that LGBT people are real. We're real. We're here. We have real problems that are the same as everybody else's. We want inclusion. We want acceptance. We want to live our lives, go to work, go to the bathroom, not be murdered, stabbed, or given any shit to.
right.
It's simple, basic human rights here. And I would really like to see some of these companies step up and really take some action against Texas and show them, Yeah, LGBT people move out of Texas, have the population there drop significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Have some of these companies move out or do less business with or in Texas. It
Or
should be easy to hurt them back. If companies, if organizations, if people really do have our back and really do support the LGBT community, this is the time for that kind of action.
mm-hmm. Or if you and a group of your friends can get, some mobile homes, then you just move into the districts that are gerrymandered away from Democratic dominance. So any district that is gerrymandered into a Republican controlled area, move your home in there, get established, and then you can basically just, vote and disrupt them. Yes, Gender Meowster, queer mobile home squad, rise up.
Reading Tyler's next quote. Transgender only bathrooms. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to fight against a company that had transgender only bathrooms. That's fucking hilarious. Yes, please. let's establish a massive presence of the Transverse there and have only transgender bathrooms.
Yeah.
I would hold my pee for that, she said.
I love you to death, Tyler.
That's something she'd be willing to hold her pee for. That touches my heart. That is true sacrifice, and I appreciate that.
Mm.
Let it be known here and now that Tyler is a true LGBT ally.
Tyler's a member of the family.
Well, a true trans ally, then at least.
Trans Mom Hugs wants to know, or wants to clarify, I'm a little confused about your trans medicalism comment. So go ahead, Trans Mom Hugs. What is your issue of confusion? And if you want to cue up the next story.
It's likely we will get to more stories tonight.
Yeah.
It's not highly likely, but it is likely. We have at least one more that I teased that we need to get to, but otherwise.
Real quick though, the next story does. Oh, Trans Mom Hugs. There's so many comments that got lost in there. So if you can find a way to rephrase that so TikTok doesn't mute it, that would be great. The next news item though does establish the other side of this war that is now being enacted in.
All right. Well, we've called for it here. I've called for it specifically. We've gotten in a little bit of a chat fight over it. So let's see what's going on here. Joe Biden applauded for finally taking action on anti-LGBTQ plus bills. It cannot be overstated. What is that cannot be overstated, Jeannie?
So basically, Joe Biden finally has enacted an executive order on June 15th that is designed to protect LGBTQIA plus people from hateful discrimination of conversion therapy and the onslaught of state legislation targeting trans people. The order instructs that federal education and health departments broaden access to gender affirming care. In addition, Biden suggests that new ways be found to help combat the onslaught of anti-LGBTQ plus bills aimed at trans youth passed by various state lawmakers this year. Biden gave a message of acceptance as he signed the order. Just be you. You are loved. You are heard. You are understood. You do belong. And I want you to know that as your president, all of us on the stage have your back. We have your back.
For the next, year and a half?
Yeah. Okay, Trans Mom Hugs wants to know, what is the definition of transmedicalism? Transmedicalism is an earlier form of, well, it's the designation of an earlier group of transgender people who identified with that early diagnosis from Ray Blanchard. And basically, it says that anyone who is transgender must be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, must pursue some form of medical transition. And those are the only valid definitions of trans people. If you do not have gender dysphoria, or your gender dysphoria is not disruptive, and if you do not pursue social, medical, and legal transition, then you do not get to be called a transgender person.
The original trans gatekeepers.
Yeah. But back to Biden. Biden basically sets it up and says this is the first shot from his side of it. His executive order was a lot of posturing. Yes, thank you, Gender Meowster. We fully affirm their statement there in the chat. But Biden's administration basically has just said, hey, we want to do what we can to broaden the education and access to gender affirming care. And basically just wants people to fight the anti-LGBTQ plus bills. This was all money. This was all a money thing. Biden wants to crack down on conversion therapy and wants to make sure that federal funds are not and cannot be used against LGBTQ plus people. There was he's going to put pressure to get the equality bill passed, but it is not going to do much good.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that. Because right now, the Republican Party has so much momentum behind it that, for example, at the end of the Texas platform, the GOP platform, they explicitly denounced a group of Republican legislators for their participation in the bipartisan anti-gun or gun controlling measures that have been brought forward.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Texas has condemned them in the GOP has condemned them in the strongest words.
Wow. Well, going back to the previous point that you made, the thing about this is, the thing that the Trump presidency proved to us, there is nothing sacred in this country at all. And nothing that can be done cannot be undone. The quote unquote only thing that can't be undone is a constitutional amendment. And it's practically impossible to pass those. And it's not impossible to overturn it.
Right.
So, yeah. It's crazy.
Right.
There was a natural flow in our democracy where the pendulum would swing back and forth, where no group had power for any great long period of time. The most we usually got was 2 terms in one party, where the one party had power.
Yeah.
And it does provide balance. It keeps both sides in check, both sides working for the people, because the people will vote the other side next time. It is democracy working to a regard. Now we're seeing that all it is it's a power grab, and that when certain groups swing into power, they are just going to wreak hell on the country and human rights in the name of religion, which is not supposed to be part of it.
Right.
Which was explicitly not supposed to be part of the whole thing, which was the whole point of the founding of this country. And we've heard so many times where they have talked about the Constitution and protecting the Constitution and the original meanings and the original intention of the laws and the foundation of this land. And they have twisted that and used that for their own diabolical means to limit the rights of citizens of this country.
Mhm.
It's no longer a matter of balance. It's no longer a matter of just the pendulum swinging back and forth. There is a party that is trying to take over power to not limit the rights of certain people in this country, but eliminate them entirely.
Right.
Because they want to eliminate that class, that group of people entirely.
Yeah.
Make no further mistakes about this whatsoever. It's explicit. It's there in black and white. And they are gaining momentum.
This is diabolical, people.
It
This
is.
is diabolical.
And it's the most terrifying thing that we've seen in this country, I believe. We have made some massive missteps that have been terrifying for groups of people. This is a big one. Yes, they're targeting LGBT folks right now.
Yep.
We've seen them target women's rights.
Mhm.
That will get worse.
Mhm. Yeah.
People of color, Native Americans. Holy shit! Look out for what happens to Native American sovereignty.
So there's no, that's not our sandbox to play in, but I will already say that sovereignty of the indigenous nations and tribes that have been established for over 150 years has already been removed. 2 years ago, the Supreme Court upheld indigenous land sovereignty and basically returned the sovereignty of Oklahoma transplaced indigenous peoples to basically say that those tribes have complete authority on tribal lands, which mean that tribal law supersedes state law in Oklahoma. The governor has ignored that.
Mhm.
Montana was told by a federal judge to start issuing documentation, and they ignored the judge. The Texas GOP platform that we just talked about basically says that if we do not agree with anything that is in the Constitution, they will ignore it. We are facing a constitutional crisis in this country where we actually have states who are quite comfortable with the idea of rejecting the Constitution. If not in whole, at least in part.
Okay.
Luna, I hate that. I hate that.
All right, let's get back on track here and move on with the story so that we don't just end up
Crying into our wine.
crying into our wine, punching holes in all of our walls, and smashing our TV sets.
And see, that's why I put junk in front of all my walls. I can't get to them.
City Council votes to rescind LGBTQ plus protections passed in February. So
Right.
one step forward, one step or two back. This is Nebraska.
Actually,
what's going on here?
This is the fulfillment of something that we talked about back in February. Lincoln, Nebraska, the city council has basically voted against keeping an anti-discrimination ordinance in place. This ordinance would have allowed for protections of LGBTQ plus members of or citizens of Lincoln, Nebraska. It would have offered equal opportunity when housing, employment, or public accommodations were being discussed. The fairness ordinance was passed back in the first part of the year. The reason why this became a critical issue for some of us is that one of our siblings in Lincoln, Nebraska was fighting the fight to keep this ordinance in place when the Family Research Council and the conservative evangelical Christian groups that have been pushing for anti-trans legislation came into Lincoln, Nebraska, published a petition, got 18,000 signatures, which is basically 3 times what they needed to rescind or veto or replace this ordinance. And our transgender sibling was being bullied and attacked on an ongoing basis until they finally took their own life. This is now the fulfillment of that. The ordinance has been removed. Yes, Milo. It's only been in the books for 4 months, but they've already repealed it. But 2 out members of the LGBTQIAP plus community were part of the voting bloc that rescinded the ordinance. 2 of our LGBTQ plus siblings voted to remove that equal opportunity ordinance.
And that whole fight lost us one of our own, a really great, upstanding member of our community.
Yep.
What was Milo's last name?
I only knew him as Milo. I don't have that information right on top of my head because I'm frittata.
This is going across the pond to London. The National Lottery defends handing thousands in funding to the anti-trans LGBT Alliance. The story we covered last week, and this is the follow-up. What's happening here, Jeannie?
So the LGBT Alliance is an organization that has basically campaigned against the ban on conversion therapy in the UK, but only as long as that conversion therapy was only banned in the case of lesbian, gay, and bisexual people. They wanted to keep conversion therapy in place for transgender people. They have essentially said that there is no LGBT plus community, and that members of the LGBTQ plus community are really just into bestiality. And they established a helpline for people to call in between the ages of 13 and 25 if they are having any problems. Despite an immediate backlash from just about everybody who gives a damn, the National Lottery Award spokesperson basically said that the LGBT Alliance has been awarded with £9,000 for all, let's see, the National Lottery Awards for All grant for a project to scope the need, feasibility, constituent elements, and operating parameters of a national advice service for lesbian, gay, and bisexual people. We are satisfied that this project meets our eligibility criteria for funding. All projects we fund must adhere to equalities legislation and the terms and conditions for each grant. So essentially, the National Lottery Awards people said that exclusion of transgender individuals is completely within their standards of equality.
Okay.
I promise y'all, there's good news. There's good news. I put good news in here. I promise. I promise I did.
We just need to trudge through all this crap to get to it fast.
I didn't get the diggy diggy.
Let's move into something that's neutral. It's just statistics. But for our number nerds out there, just who love looking at statistics and hearing all this stuff, let's get into this for them. A report from, what's the MI stand for? Why am I blanking on it? WI, the Williams Institute at the Williams Institute School of Law at UCLA has published a report on how many adults and youth identify as transgender in the United States.
This, I mean,
Cool
we're
piece
always looking for statistics. We're always looking for information. People are constantly challenging, how many are there really involved in this? So
Mhm.
youth data from a behavioral risk factor surveillance system, the youth risk behavior surveillance system, and advanced statistical modeling. This study estimates the population of adults and youth who identify as transgender nationwide and in the District of Columbia. It provides estimates regarding gender, age, and race and ethnicity. So, here's the high points. Ages 13 to 17. Nearly 1 in 5 people identify as transgender. So basically, nearly 1 in 5 teenagers identify as trans. The percentage and number of adults who identify as transgender in the US has remained steady. The estimate of the number of youth who identify as transgender has doubled from the previous estimate. So for people ages 13 and up, there are 1.6 million transgender folks. 1.3 million adults and 300,000 youth identify as transgender. 18% identify as trans are 13 to 17, and 8% of the people in the US population are age 13 to 17. I'll look into that in just a second, Tyler.
Yeah, that number of 1 in 5, I don't think that's right, because the percentage that it works out to is in the United States is 1.43% of folks 13 to 17 identify as trans, which includes is trans or non-binary.
Okay. 39% are transgender women, 36% are transgender men. The gap in that leads me to believe that non-binary is part of that.
I believe that the number you're probably pulling with the 1 in 5 would be 1 in 5 LGBT folks are trans.
Okay.
That might be it. But
I'm just reading the stuff you gave me, Em. Jeez Louise.
Did I? Yeah, I might have.
You gave me this page. I just clicked on the thingy you gave me in the thingy, and this is the thingy I got. So I'm just reading the thingy that you gave me, okay?
I'm just clarifying the data to make sure, we're not saying that 20% of folks in the world are in the United States are trans, because
no, 20% of teens, 13 to 17. 0.9% of transgender adults live in North Carolina. Fuck. 0.2% of transgender adults live in Missouri. 3% live in New York. 0.6% in Wyoming. 77,300 Asian adults identify as trans. 10,800 Asian youth identify as trans. 14,500 American Indian Alaska Native adults identify as trans, and 3,000 American Indian, Alaska Native youth identify as trans. So those are some of the data points. We are still looking at, this is the one that blows my mind. The greatest number of transgender people are identified in what we call the South. Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, North South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, 102,200 transgender people identified. Whereas the West, including California, has 81,700. There is a greater concentration of trans folks in the South, which is, and that's youth, okay? That's youth. There is a greater concentration in the South than anywhere else in the country. And for adults, it is 523,600 for the South compared to 328,500 in the West, including California. The South is still most heavily populated by transgender people.
We need a way to get them out of there.
Yeah.
Save them, get them out.
No.
But some great numbers. It's a really wonderful study, and you know, I'm a huge one on the statistics and being counted. You know, making sure that the numbers are accurate of representing how many of us there are, how many of us there are in breakdown in comparison to others. Yeah. I particularly loved the gender breakdown that where did it go? It's here in the little things. I just keep flicking. That roughly 39% are transgender women, 36% are transgender men. The way that the media, not the media, but the Republican Party would have you believe is that that it's all trans women.
Yeah,
it's all trans women, and the fact that it is divided into three, men and women are pretty close, pretty equal. You know, we love our non-binary siblings, and they're in the, I think that, let me see if I can do math, that puts y'all at about 20%, a little over 20%, 25. So we're all really well represented here, and I appreciated that. I appreciated seeing that breakdown and seeing that balance of the identities.
Yeah, there's a request for the direct study result.
I can't do that.
So, Gender Meowster, it is not just 3 states. It is Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Alaska, and Hawaii. That is the designation of the West in this.
I know. I saw that. I was talking and I could see it pop up in the corner of my eye. I'm just like, that's bad timing. I'm right in the middle of important statistical dump here. All right. Let's, I don't think there's anything else for us to say on that one.
Nope.
Republican congressional hopeful wants LGBTQ plus allies executed for treason. This is another set of calls that we've heard for murder of LGBT folks, you know, right, since we started covering those last week.
So basically, this is just the quick rundown of different states' issues. I think that is that Mark Burns?
That is Mark Burns during a Trump presidential rally in 2016.
So Mark Burns is running in, let's see, North Carolina? South Carolina. He's running in South Carolina's 4th District Republican primary. Keep in mind that Mark Burns is a pastor as well as a politician, and he was on the Stu Peters show last week and was basically saying that no, but not basically. Fuck it. I'm going to quote it. Um, this was on air during the interview. He said this: the LGBT transgender grooming of our children's mind is a national security threat because it is ultimately designed to destabilize the republic we call the United States of America. That's why when I'm elected, I don't want to just vote. I want to start holding people accountable for treason to the Constitution. I'm going to push to reenact the House Un-American Activities Committee to hold people accountable for treason. We need to hold people for treason and start having some public hearings and start executing people who are found guilty for their treasonous acts against the Constitution of the United States of America, just like they did back in 1776. Please remember, he is saying that transgender grooming is treasonous.
And that people aren't transgender without being groomed.
Right.
That's the text there.
Yeah. And so he is calling for the execution of transgender people as traitors. Now this next one is a mixed story.
Okay. So I won't comment on the headline then. NYC council members shame GOP counselor for her disgusting comments about LGBTQ people. What's going on here?
So, during a New York City council meeting, there was a member who was using the word groomer repeatedly. The council member, Vicky Palladino, a name we may have heard before, like last week, has been using the term groomer to refer to LGBTQ people to insinuate that we are interacting with children in a less than healthy way. Palladino had tweeted a long rant about Drag Queen Story Hour, where she called the performances child grooming and sexualization, unacceptable and grotesque. Progressives may have no problem with child grooming and sexualization, but I do. This will not happen on my watch. Kids deserve a quality education free from political manipulation. But as she was listing all of these things and talking about people, New York City Council member Eric Botcher said, enough of that word and enough of this rhetoric. So basically, she was called out publicly during the city council meeting. He said, I cannot think of a more nauseating term than the term groomer. That's what child molesters do. They cultivate trust with someone they're about to victimize. So he basically put her on notice, and this is not something we are going to attribute to another person who is not convicted of this.
Oh wow. God, the irony of that and the hypocrisy of the GOP is just so insane and so brought to the forefront with this. They cultivate trust with someone they're about to victimize. Mm-hmm. Doesn't that describe the GOP to a T?
I don't want to characterize or insinuate anything that may result in a libel or slander suit.
But cultivating trust in the electorate, and then with among someone they're about to victimize, they're going to limit your rights, but they make you think that you should trust them and that they've got your best interests at heart.
Yep.
Oh, the irony. Okay, I see the first word of the next article, and I'm already getting like chills down my spine. Florida AHCA launches sham anti-transgender rulemaking process.
So the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration issued a notice of proposed rule for the denial of Medicaid coverage for all medically necessary gender affirming care for both youth and adults. The notice issued on Friday follows an irregular process and launches a 3-week public comment period that includes 2 federal holidays. And this is all part of the effort to combat what happened with Governor DeSantis and the Florida Department of Health equivalent. Quote, 2 weeks ago, we highlighted the fact that Governor DeSantis' administration was intent on issuing a proposed new rule based on junk science and discredited so-called experts to justify denying Medicaid coverage for hormone therapy and other accepted medical interventions, as well as for gender-confirming surgery for transgender Floridians. We expressed our concern that AHCA seemingly have predetermined the outcome, which today's announcement makes all the clearer. And we warned that should the AHCA follow through on its clear intent to engage in sham rulemaking charade rather than conduct a robust, substantive process that incorporates valid science, we stood ready to defend the rights of transgender people in Florida, including the right to non-discriminatory health care coverage. So the Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration issues this sham, and then along comes Lambda Legal, Southern Legal Counsel, the Florida Health Justice Project, the National Health Law Program to basically say, fuck you, assholes. The AHCA has been very publicly relying on false information, discounted medical information, and these groups are basically saying, no, you're not going to do this.
We know this next headline all too well. It's been obvious. We've covered it a lot. Elected officials are going around saying drag queens are grooming kids now, sticking on the grooming lies and BS.
This is actually from the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, and he has been leading a chorus of criticism against a Queens councilwoman who has said that drag queens are grooming kids. This is, again, Vicky Palladino. We just talked about her tweet, but this is what she talked about. Any school in my district participating in drag queen degeneracy risks losing their funding. Adult drag performers have no businesses in our schools, and they will not be in my district, period. The mayor responded, at a time when our LGBTQ plus communities are under increased attack across this country, we must use our education system to educate. The goal is not only for our children to be academically smart, but also emotionally intelligent. Drag storytellers and the libraries and schools that support them are advancing a love of diversity, personal expression, and literacy that is core to what our city embraces. That's the mayor standing up against city council member Vicky Palladino in defense of Drag Queen Story Hour.
God, I love the next sentence too. The New York City Council LGBTQIA caucus is calling for the council to remove Palladino from the committee and that she be censured for her bigoted comments. Of course, it's the LGBTQIA caucus, so of course they would say that. It's us supporting us, but still, it's nice to hear. A Dallas judge removes Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton from case involving trans youth health care. Is this a good thing, Jeannie?
This is a very good thing. Nadia, real quick, that was New York City. So, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is the one who began the landslide of issues revolving around declaring that gender affirming care for youth in Texas was considered child abuse. So, in the case that has been moving forward involving Dallas's Children's Medical Center and the physicians that provide any gender affirming care to transgender youth, the judge ruled that Mr. Paxton and his office do not have the authority to act in the case because no state law was implicated. The Attorney General has no business being in this case and tried to push his way into it to satisfy a political interest, not a legal one. This is one of the partners of the defendants. Attorney Paxton intervened in the case, claiming gender affirming care constitutes child abuse. And then during a 2-hour hearing in front of Judge Bellin, attorneys for the AG questioned whether Dr. Lopez, the plaintiff, not the defendant, the plaintiff, was following the proper standard of care. The court rejected those arguments, and one of the attorneys said the Attorney General intervened in this lawsuit with no purpose but intimidation only. So basically, the Attorney General of Texas got thrown out of a courtroom because he didn't have a leg to stand on.
Beautiful. I love that. And I also love this next article because this place has a special place in my heart.
And you do like this.
We have a little spot of paradise, y'all. Hawaii governor signs trio of pro-LGBTQ plus bills to make state inclusive for all. We were just talking about how the West breaks down. Hawaii is in the West, and now we have a little paradise sanctuary, and I love this. What's going on here, Jeannie?
So Governor David Ige has signed 3 bills, which the first bans categorical, cosmetic, or blanket exclusions to gender affirming care. In Senate Bill 2136, it prohibits jurors being excluded on the basis of gender expression or identity. And then State Bill 2670 seeks to establish a Hawaii State LGBTQ plus commission on a permanent and continuing basis. So, I mean, the first one is going to say, look, if you're only giving a surface or general exclusion to gender affirming care, no, don't do that. We're not gonna do that.
I don't think you nailed the Hawaiian accent, but I appreciate you trying.
Okay, I did. I'm not Hawaiian. Okay, Hawaii is not in one of the voices. Secondly, if you want to serve on jury duty, which is not really a win, but it's a win, we're gonna count it. We're gonna take what we get. Basically, if you want to serve on a jury, you cannot be denied a place based on your gender expression or identity. Finally, and this is the big one, a permanent and continuing LGBTQ plus commission established in the state of Hawaii that will continue to push for more equality and equity for those who are transgender in the state of Hawaii, including the indigenous peoples' third genders. I don't have the name right in front of me because my brain is a frittata with Swiss cheese, and the name escapes me.
Brain frittata. Okay, we've got a lot of articles. We've got a lot of articles and very little time. So let's get pounding here.
Okay.
Can't talk that fast. Michigan Republicans block Pride Month resolution because it's pro-LGBT people.
Yeah, I mean, come on. This is just basically the most dumbest thing. I got these backwards in the wind, so we're just kind of mixing things up, I guess. Michigan State Republicans rejected this resolution that they had passed last year. And State Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey referred the resolution back to his Government Operations Committee in order to make it more reflective of the diversity of opinions in the Senate. Shirkey suggested removing references to the LGBTQ community and its struggles, adding a note that the state legislature values all Michigan residents, as well as including a statement that not every citizen in Michigan agrees with the lifestyle of the LGBT community. I remind
That's why we need protections, you freaking. I'm not going to finish that sentence.
This was to mark June as Pride Month, but the Senate Majority Leader sent it back to committee to say, hey, can we, include everybody in Pride? Because not everybody thinks that, the queers need attention.
Ohio GOP leader to remove genital inspections from trans sports ban to get it passed. So there was a backlash, and they're backing off of that. Small win, just based on common sense. What's going on here, Jamie?
Actually, it's not even common sense. It's optics. Somebody finally went to the Republicans and said, hey, look, when you wrote this into the bill, did you think about how this looked? And they're like, what do you mean? We want to keep boys on boys' side and girls on girls' side. And they're like,
and how do you want to do that? You want to look at their genitals?
You wanted to peek under their clothes to do that. Do you know what a genital inspection is? It's not like a 15-point down at the oil lube place, okay? You're not actually going to put it up on the rack and test its undercarriage. You're actually looking up somebody's shorts or down somebody's shorts or up somebody's skirt. And so basically they said, this is an optics issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that it has taken somebody this fucking long to go to a senator and say, do you realize just how dumbass you sound?
Ooh, great segue. Speaking of major dumbasses and how horrible and stupid they sound, Marjorie Taylor Greene falsely blames trans men for tampon shortage.
What is the story I've been waiting to share?
What the actual hell?
Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's my girl. I love her. She always brings a smile to my face. So look, we know that supply, yes, paper crane, that is exactly what you thought you heard. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is one of the most brilliant individuals of the national federal political system, was again doing one of her, things where she was talking. We all know that there is a supply chain issue currently around the world.
That it affects everything.
Everything. So, this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say. Now that we have Joe Biden in office and full Democratic control, there is an actual war on women. Now, stop for ironic pause there. You can't find baby formula for mothers. Women's sports has been completely invaded and men have taken over everything. They are women of the year in every category in women's categories. And now there's a shortage of tampons. Now she was on a podcast, but she says now there's a shortage of tampons, and that's probably because men are buying tampons. Host Brian Glenn asked if it was beta males who were using tampons, but Greene clarified that she was talking about trans men using tampons. They put tampons in men's bathrooms, she said.
Is that true? Are there any men out there in the audience that can confirm that there are tampons in men's bathrooms anywhere now?
There are
let
some.
alone widespread enough to cause any kind of issue.
There are actually some places that are making an effort to make trans men provide that accessibility for trans men in men's restrooms, but it is not widespread. It is
Mhm.
not on a basis. Okay, wait. Nadia says this. Are they getting a lot of nosebleeds? Now, that's funny, but I want to add something to this comment. Maybe she should talk to some of the soldiers who were overseas who received boxes of tampons for bullet wounds. I am not making this up. Care packages to male soldiers in those areas where they were dealing with insurgents would receive tampons in their care package because in an emergency situation, a tampon is perfect for a bullet wound.
I love how Marjorie Taylor Greene understands nothing in the world ever, and yet she's always, putting out her opinion on it and blaming somebody for it. And the somebody, by somebody, I mean it's always LGBT people. But,
Oh yeah,
that's just a wonderful level of crazy and ridiculous. 3 hospitalized and 4 houses torched after someone set pride flags on fire.
yep.
Okay.
Baltimore, Maryland. There were 2 pride flags that were lit on fire in Baltimore. 2 individuals from one household, one from another, were targeted after displaying pride flags outside their home. The fire was set in the morning when the individuals were sleeping in their homes. And at first, investigators believed that the fire was started after one pride flag was set on fire. They now believe that the fire that damaged the 4 homes was started when 2 different flags were targeted in separate incidents. Not only were the pride flags destroyed, but pride decor was set on fire as well. The cases are still under investigation, but they are being investigated as a hate crime.
Christian preacher calls for death to lesbians. Didn't we already cover this?
No. Same guy, different sermon.
Okay, well, then we can probably move on then. Jesus.
Oh, wait. No, hang on.
Okay, there's more. There's something else we need to cover in this.
This guy, Brother Tanner Furr of the Steadfast Baptist Church in Hurst, Texas.
Okay.
We talked about last week that he said that all homosexuals should be convicted of abomination, sentenced to death, and executed by having a bullet put in the back of their head. This time around, said that lesbians are sick and gross because the Bible says so, and that a bullet in the head is too nice. The Bible said to stone them. That's a little bit harsher of a punishment. The punishment lasts a little bit longer than a bullet to the head. That's an easy way out. This guy is using his platform to target any of them.
Starbucks accused of threatening gender-affirming healthcare benefits.
Yep.
Didn't they just come out and say they were like giving a lot of healthcare benefits for gender-affirming care?
So one of the things that we have announced is that Starbucks does offer gender-affirming care as part of its employee package. The problem is that Starbucks employees are attempting to unionize to improve conditions within their centers of within their places of business. As an effort to bust the union movement, Starbucks has gone to to transgender employees and said that if they support a union, that they will dump transgender affirming care from their benefits program.
Vermont man arrested for threatening daughter's school over trans people.
Yep. So he was in New Hampshire and was arrested because he had gone to his daughter's school. The man said that if his daughter were exposed to transgender students or drag queens, he would commit a mass shooting. The judge has now granted an extreme risk protection order barring the man from purchasing or possessing dangerous weapons for at least 6 months. Thank God we're safe for 6 months.
How about also a restraining warrant against him coming anywhere near that school?
Well, that's what it is. That's what the order is.
Good. Oh, sorry that we can't show you the image, but his little mugshots here, and he's just over 5'5", just a little bitty guy, but not cute in any way. Council takes back accidental Pride Month proclamation it voted through without realizing. What the heck's happening here?
So the Horry County Council approved a slate of items without discussion in a May session, and then they went back and they looked and they realized, oh shit, that included a June is Pride Month in the county. So the resolution had outlined that the month of June historically has been designated as Pride Month, which celebrates everyone's right to live without fear or prejudice, discrimination, violence, or hatred based upon sexual orientation or gender identity. None of the council members representing the notoriously conservative county had even read the agenda and passed the slate unanimously.
Well, good.
And then concerned citizens began to write emails to the council members and said, what the holy hell did you just do, Junior? They wanted to know why in their very conservative county, they were now observing LGBTQIA month. So the board raised the resolution at the next available opportunity, rescinding it by a unanimous vote.
Wow. This one's interesting. Bishop bans Catholic school from calling itself Catholic after it flew rainbow and Black Lives Matter flags.
Yep. The Diocese of Worcester, Rebecca, please double check my pronunciations. The Jesuit-run Nativity School of Worcester is the school at the issue here. They had been flying the flag since January of 2021 at the request of students. And the bishop of the diocese, Worcester.
Yeah, Worcester. You got it.
Okay. Bishop Robert J. McManus had warned had objected to the flags being flown, questioning whether the tuition-free private school, which serves low-income Black and Latina, not Latina, but Latinx individuals in grades 5 through 8, was committing itself to ideologies which are contrary to Catholic teaching. So this isn't a college, Rebecca. This is the Nativity School of Worcester, and it's a secondary school. But they had the LGBTQ Pride and Black Lives Matter, and so the bishop said that they cannot call themselves a Catholic school because those flags represent ideologies in opposition to Catholic teaching.
I had never heard that Catholicism was anti people of color. That's great to know.
Yeah, I know.
Swimming's world governing body adopts new transgender policy for athletes. The World Swimming's governing body has adopted new rules for trans athletes. Jimmy, what are these?
Yeah, this is a slap in the face to transgender athletes. Um, the World Swimming governing body, which is FINA, FINA, voted 71.5% in favor of a new gender inclusion policy. And it only allows swimmers who transition before the age of 12 to compete in women's events. So any transgender swimmer who wants to compete, if they began their transition after the age of 12, they are no longer included. Which means that Leah Thomas has some things to say about this. And there are other swimmers who are coming out in opposition to this policy. But as a crumb handed back to the trans community, there are proposals for a new open competition category. And they're going to spend 6 months looking how they might be able to set that up.
So I need to publish a retraction tomorrow on Instagram and TikTok. I somehow flubbed that and thought it was the Olympics, but it's just the World Swimming governing body. So cool. I get to do that tomorrow. Trans woman and nursing home reached landmark settlement after complaint. Sounds promising. What's going on here?
Mary King had filed a lawsuit against the assisted living facility that she resided in because they were discriminating against her because she is transgender. She filed a complaint with the state's Human Rights Commission, and she says that the Sunrise Assisted Living Facility would not admit her due to her gender identity. And they have now reached a settlement to kind of get around that right now. As part of the negotiation, there is no legal binding precedent that is established. But this does begin to set some things in motion to be able to possibly create new ways of looking to the care of elder transgender citizens. That is in Maine, Heather.
Transgender paramedic abused and spit on. What's going on here, Jeannie?
Sussex in England. A transgender paramedic, Steph Meach, is one of England's first out transgender paramedics and works with the Southeast Coast Ambulance Service. She's been a paramedic for over 20 years. Yay on her. But she says that since coming out, she has been the victim of verbal and physical abuse from patients. I've had times where I'm treating people and I get spat at for who I am. As I come to the door, I usually get, "What are you?" It's really not okay. I am first and foremost a paramedic and here to help. In a campaign that was released, she basically stands up and said, it's the few minority that spoil it for everyone. And when I come away from these incidents, they do really hurt you deep down. I am so proud of our sibling for doing that. And it's amazing that she can keep going in. Right, Death Pixie? I know.
Oh, I opened a new tab and lost the article. This is great. It's going to take me a while. I do like that It's just mentioned in the article, and I don't have the context very well, but there is a Work Without Fear campaign to target growing aggression and violence towards LGBT folks.
Mm-hmm.
Rainn Wilson apologizes for mean crack about trans people. Where was this and what happened here?
So, Rainn Wilson, who many people know from The Office, where that was his breakout role, I do believe, made a comment on Twitter wherein he said, "Till you can no longer say nursing or breastfeeding mother, you have to say chest feeding person," which chest feeding is a term that has developed to support trans fathers and non-binary parents because of their dysphoria around breastfeeding. And many individuals in Rainn Wilson's life contacted him from the transgender and non-binary community and basically pointed out some of the problems with this, to which he offered this apology. Yesterday, I tweeted a mean crack about breastfeeding versus chest feeding. After speaking with some trans friends and educating myself a bit more, I want to apologize for the tweet. It was adding to misinformation and meanness. I'm sorry.
Trans woman barred from darts tournament for no good reason, says she's been left in turmoil.
So, I know darts is really a very, very, breaking sport. This is something that could shake the sport balling world across the entire globe. V, who has not chosen to disclose her surname, is a professional darts player and has been playing darts for years before transitioning. But she has not played in a competition since. She has returned to darts, but that has been sort of left in a bit of a limbo after Clubs New Zealand Darts Association, which organizes the national and regional darts competitions, prevented her from playing because they do not have guidelines for trans players.
Why would you need a policy on trans dart players? What's the advantage there?
So here's the thing. The rules simply say men can only compete in men's singles, women in the women's singles. And so because trans folks aren't included, V said, because they don't have a policy, there's just men's competitions and women's competition, which I currently qualified to enter. They are making a personal decision. So this is, again, going back to dividing the line. They could decide under our rules she's allowed to play. They could say that, but instead they're barring me from playing. They're breaching human rights instead of allowing inclusion.
Mm-hmm. And the answer to that, Autumn, is no. She wasn't playing. This was her first time signing up for a tournament since transitioning. I mean, I don't know what the qualifications were to get into the tournament, if you had to win so much. So I guess I can't say no, but she wasn't winning in a tournament. And darts, you're standing, what's the regulation? 6 feet away, and you're just using your elbow. Like, it's not a power sport. There's no advantage between the genders.
Emily.
Yes, ma'am.
I need to interject a point of correction there.
Okay.
That since it is an elbow-based activity, men do have an unfair advantage. So go from this to this.
Jeannie made it funny, y'all. Jeannie made it funny. That was Genevieve Bergman's joke of the day.
That was Genevieve Bergman's last story on Transistance forevermore.
I warned you not to cross me. Christians are checking out all LGBTQ plus books in libraries as part of a Hide the Pride campaign.
So this is new. A Catholic organization is encouraging its members to steal LGBTQ books from libraries in a campaign it calls Hide the Pride. So this program, this campaign is encouraging people to go in. If a library has a pride display, take all the books. So a teen librarian who goes by the name of Alex on social media shared a picture of the Pride Month display they had created, but with all of the books missing. My middle grade Pride Month display was stolen tonight, and this threatening letter was left by the thief. The form letter said, to protect our children in the community, we've checked out the books in the Pride display. We plan to keep these books checked out until the library agrees to remove inappropriate content from the shelves. The letter also states that flags, signs, and book displays are all inappropriate in their opinion, and that people under the age of 18 can't be LGBTQ because LGBTQ identities are based on how adults experience sexual attraction and gender identity. Because there is no fucking thing such as teenagers who are horny all the time. As parents, we should be able to bring out children to the public library without exposing them to displays of adult pride, even though the display was not adult in any way. But this is from the Catholic Vote website. After collecting the signatures on a letter to the library board, members of the public will go to the library, find the Pride Month display full of LGBTQ books targeted at kids, and simply check out all of those books at the front desk. Catholic Vote recommends participants take a friend or two along so multiple library cards can be used. Having emptied the children's Pride display, parents can go home and place the Pride books on a shelf out of the reach of the children, which has worked famously successfully in keeping children away from things that they weren't supposed to get.
It's just such a childish bullshit ploy. It's just so 4-year-old. It's so crazy.
Before this, okay, so Deshaun Watson is daddy says, smart, good job. I'm going to bet, Deshaun, that you keep all your porno mags under the mattress, right? Is that where you keep them? Yeah, never mind.
Hey, I found my parents in their side table, so you know.
Hey, nice. Same story. We're skipping it. We go to the bullet point, and then we get this is just supporting information.
Yeah. So Ted Cruz pouts that Disney has lesbian toys.
Yep.
What the hell is going on here?
Ted Cruz, 4th place only to Marjorie Taylor Greene, is one of the most intelligent politicians in American politics. Weighed in on the controversy surrounding the upcoming release of Lightyear. On a recent episode of his podcast, The Verdict, Ted Cruz has a podcast. I did not know that. Ted Cruz decried the inclusion of lesbian toys in the Toy Story spinoff.
Well, and the funny thing is, when you say lesbian toys, I'm sure what we're going to get into is not what comes to mind for me.
So, noting that the film has already been banned in 14 countries and may also be banned in theaters in China, Cruz said, "It's a wild twist where Hollywood has been willing to grovel to China to let China censor its movies, to embrace anti-Americanism, to avoid any criticism of China because they want to get access to the Chinese movie market. And when it comes to their culture agenda, apparently now suddenly they discovered, all right, give up the money because lesbian toys are important." To which
Autumn wins in Twitch chat there. That was a great response. Oh, I love that.
So I want y'all to keep in mind that it was Ted Cruz who basically put within our brains the image of Mickey and Pluto going at it. You don't remember that?
Thankfully, no. My childhood has not been sullied to that point by these.
Oh no, honey, this was about 6 weeks ago, when basically Disney came out and said, "Hey, we don't really like the Don't Say Gay bill because most of our employees hate us now." And so Cruz said that Disney would basically soon start turning out content where Mickey and Pluto would be getting it on screen.
Their straw man arguments don't even have much straw in them.
Right.
They're just so ridiculous.
But this is the final kicker in this.
There's more.
Senator Cruz final statements offered this observation: "The last time I checked, most toys are kind of androgynous. They're usually without genitalia."
Oh yeah.
I mean, that goes very, very true for Barbie and Ken, but how do you call something a lesbian toy if it doesn't have genitalia?
What? Like what?
So stop and think about this. He said that they make lesbian toys, but then he ends his comments by saying they don't got genitalia.
And how can you be lesbian without genitalia?
I mean, look, my llamas don't have any dangly bits.
So you're saying that those llamas are straight then?
These llamas are, well, probably not this one because it's kind of rainbowish. I mean, that one's already kind of at a disadvantage. And this one's definitely not straight because it comes with its own, trans pride. So we're going to go with this one.
We got one more article to get to, and then I got a question about where Pan fits into some of this stuff. Saudi government cracks down on the sale of rainbow toys.
Yep. So now officials in Saudi Arabia are confiscating rainbow-colored clothes and toys in stores in order to crack down on homosexuality in Saudi Arabia. We are giving a tour of the items that contradict the Islamic faith and public morals and promote homosexual colors targeting the younger generation, because we all know that it is a rainbow that made us all queer.
Well, and this is another instance where I have to apologize that we don't have the images showing for these headlines, because the image they show for the article is a xylophone, and we all have had or remember the xylophone with the little metal plates that were in the different colors, so it was easy to see and remember which one was which. That is a grooming tool, we're learning, and promotes abnormal behavior, wasn't it?
Yep. Abnormal behavior.
An abnormal behavioral choice.
Nadia, you will get a full introduction to my stuffies when you come visit.
I
Okay,
am
pansexual, you wanted to ask. First of all, I want to say this as a statement of clarification. We do not find any pansexuality in the toy section. It is in the kitchen section.
Thank you. One of my favorite jokes. And I like it because Daniel Levy made that joke. Daniel Levy was the writer for oh now I'm on a blank on it, for Schitt's Creek.
Uh-huh.
And in that he made a pansexual joke about an affinity for cookware, and I love that joke, and so
So
that's why I like to say that one.
I've never watched or listened to any of those. I knew I was not original in saying it, but I do want to, as an educator for healthy sex and sexuality, I do want to share that I do have a persistent fantasy of a three-way with a double boiler.
We should have stopped while we were ahead, y'all. We had it. I should have commented. I should have just laughed and let it go. So we talked a lot earlier about, the LGB without the T. The LGBT specifically, you said at one point when we were talking about the UK, the LGBT Alliance out there, and their exclusion of TQIA, basically any gender identities. I'm kind of curious though, with that strict definition of who they are, the LGB, from your experience, do they exclude pan identities?
Yes,
Sexual identities?
because they refute the identity of pansexuals by essentially reducing it down to bisexual.
Yes.
And I think this is going to start.
There are no trans identities, so you can't. There's no additional qualification other than man or woman.
Exactly. And so what I think we're going to eventually see is we're going to see a conflict down the road where the language of bisexual, which has been expanded a little bit to allow people to say that my sex is attracted to other sexes. There are some people that actually use that to say, I'm not necessarily attracted to just a person of this sex, but I am attracted to other sexes. So the bisexuality is the person of perspective in relationship to the person of pursuit, so to speak. So in this case, you would be bisexual because you are who you are as a sexual person, and then you can be attracted to anyone else. I think that definition is going to get challenged by people from the LGBT Alliance and the anti-TQIAP individuals within the Alphabet Mafia. They're going to reduce it and say, no, bisexuality is attraction to male or female. But I mean, there's so much gatekeeping that is happening right now to bisexual people that it is embarrassing to even say that they are being allowed within the wider LGB community, because they're saying, well, look, you cannot be a bisexual person if you are in a committed relationship with somebody who is of one gender or sex. So if you are in a committed relationship with an individual and you have no other relationships, their argument is you can't be bisexual because you're only in a relationship with that person. So there's
Yeah.
a huge removal and invalidation of bisexuality right now. And it's really getting tough. It's really getting hard to pin people down to the idea that we're all one community. So we are seeing an increased fracturing within the LGBTQIA+ community.
Mhm. So stay tuned for the dropping of the B from the LGB Alliance.
Well, it's going to be BTIAP
Yeah.
and plus. I mean, it will eventually be lesbians and gays. There's no
Mhm.
plus. There's no nothing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, this is why, TERFs and some gay men are very vehemently speaking out against transgender identity. They don't want to be associated with us. And
Mhm.
so, if anyone, right now, if you are a gay or a lesbian person in Texas and you have a problem with transgender people, don't expect us to be around to help when your abnormal sexual choice gets downgraded to an abominable act that deserves mental health treatment
Mhm.
because we'll already be gone.
Yeah. Help them push us down, and you'll absolutely be next. You'll be part of, not even the second wave, but just wave 1.2.
Yep.
All right, y'all, that is a show. We've taken it a little bit long here, so thank you all for coming tonight. For Genevieve Bergman, for Kari Aiden in the control booth, I'm Emily Kleckner, wishing you good night and good humor. Bye, y'all.